Something fundamental is shifting in the world, not on battlefields, but in the quiet corridors of global finance. The change is subtle, almost invisible, yet its impact will be felt everywhere. For decades, the US dollar has been the backbone of international trade, giving America immense power and influence over the global economy. Every major deal, every crucial transaction seemed to flow through the dollar. But now, the ground is trembling beneath this old order, and the tremors are coming from the east. The world is watching as new players step onto the stage. China, after decades of rapid growth and strategic planning, is mounting a challenge to the dollar's supremacy, determined to reshape the rules. This isn't a sudden confrontation, but a patient, well-funded strategy, unfolding over years with careful precision. Beijing is reshaping global trade rules, signing massive deals, and promoting the yuan as a real alternative. The Belt and Road Initiative is just one example of this ambition. The scale is staggering: trillions of dollars, dozens of countries, and a vision to redefine global relationships and economic alliances for generations to come. Imagine a world where oil is priced in yuan, or major deals are settled outside the dollar. Such a shift would ripple through every market and every household. This isn't just for economists. It's about the future of global power and the economic realities that touch us all, from the price of goods to the stability of jobs. The outcome will affect everyone, from business owners in Africa to families in the US, shaping opportunities and challenges in daily life. The certainties of the post-World War II era are fading, as the world's financial architecture is being reimagined. A new, more complex world is emerging, where power is shared and competition is fierce. Understanding this shift is essential for navigating the challenges ahead, whether you're an investor, a policymaker, or simply planning your future. The story of currency is the story of power, of nations rising and falling, of fortunes made and lost. And right now, that story is being rewritten before our eyes, ushering in a new era for the world.
To understand where the world economy is heading, we first need to look back and see how the US dollar rose to become the undisputed king of global currencies. In 1944, as World War II neared its end, leaders from 44 nations gathered in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, determined to rebuild a shattered world and create a stable financial system. They agreed to peg their currencies to the US dollar, which itself was backed by gold, making the dollar the anchor of the new global order. The US held the vast majority of the world's gold reserves, making the dollar the most trusted and stable currency on the planet. Even after President Nixon ended the dollar's direct link to gold in 1971, the dollar's dominance didn't fade. It actually grew stronger in many ways. Global trade, especially vital commodities like oil, continued to be priced in dollars, creating a powerful, self-reinforcing cycle that kept the dollar at the center of world commerce. Central banks everywhere needed to hold dollars, giving the US what France famously called an exorbitant privilege: the ability to print money the world needed.
This privilege allowed America to borrow at low costs and wield immense financial power, imposing sanctions, influencing global markets, and shaping international policy. But this dominance also bred resentment, fueling criticism and a global search for alternatives to the dollar's supremacy. Countries wary of US influence and control began quietly exploring new ways to reduce their dependence on the dollar. The 2008 financial crisis, which erupted in the heart of the US financial system, exposed the risks and vulnerabilities of relying so heavily on a single currency. The world saw, perhaps for the first time in decades, the urgent need for change and greater diversification in global finance. Now, a new challenger with both ambition and vast resources is stepping up to the plate, eager to reshape the financial landscape. The stage is set for a high-stakes contest that could fundamentally reshape the global order and the way the world does business. The dollar's reign, once seemingly unbreakable, is now being seriously challenged for the first time in generations. The world is watching closely and preparing for whatever comes next in this unfolding financial drama. The next chapter in the story of global money is about to begin, and its outcome could change everything.
China's challenge to the dollar is bold, ambitious, and multi-layered, aiming to reshape the very foundation of global finance. At its core, the strategy is about shifting global trade away from the dollar and toward the yuan, making it a true rival in international markets. China is now the top trading partner for over 120 countries, using currency swap deals to bypass the dollar and encourage direct yuan settlements.
The Belt and Road Initiative alone could top $10 trillion, building not just infrastructure, but a China-centered economic ecosystem that spans continents and connects emerging markets. Loans for these massive projects are often issued in yuan, steadily increasing its global use and acceptance as a reserve currency.
Recent deals like Saudi Arabia accepting yuan for oil and Brazil trading directly in local currencies signal a new era in global trade, reducing reliance on the dollar.
Russia, under heavy sanctions, has also turned to the yuan, further accelerating this trend and deepening financial ties with China. These moves aren't isolated. They're part of a coordinated global shift, as more nations seek alternatives to the dollar-dominated system. China isn't expecting overnight change. It's playing the long game, building new institutions, forging alliances, and patiently expanding its influence. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank and New Development Bank are just the start of this new financial order. The world's financial architecture is being quietly, but fundamentally, rewritten. One deal and one institution at a time. The heart of China's strategy is making the yuan a true global currency. Once tightly controlled, the yuan is now accessible in major financial centers worldwide. Clearing banks in London, Singapore, and Frankfurt let businesses settle in yuan, bypassing the dollar. In 2016, the IMF added the yuan to its elite currency basket, a major milestone. Central banks are now holding yuan as reserves. China's digital currency, the eCNY, is already in pilot programs, potentially allowing instant, dollar-free global transactions. This could make US sanctions harder to enforce. But obstacles remain. China must open its markets and build global trust. Economist Eswar Prasad notes, true safe haven status requires transparency and strong institutions. The world still trusts the US system more. For China, trust is the final frontier.
The dollar to yuan shift sparks fierce debate among leaders and experts. Ray Dalio sees a classic power transition, with China rising as the US wanes. Leaders like Brazil's Lula question why the dollar should dominate global trade.
But skeptics like Christine Lagarde warn that trust, transparency, and the rule of law still favor the dollar. China's tight control and lack of reforms remain hurdles. Even Chinese experts admit full convertibility is risky and complex. The world is watching China's next move and weighing the risks. The outcome is far from certain. The dollar-yuan contest isn't just geopolitics. It affects daily life. For Americans, a weaker dollar could mean higher interest rates and pricier imports, but also more competitive exports.
For developing nations, the yuan offers new financing and trade options, but also new dependencies. Economic ties with China can bring growth or loss of autonomy. Social impacts or real investment can disrupt local communities. The challenge is to balance opportunity with sovereignty. The global currency shift will create winners and losers everywhere. The stakes are personal, not just political.
We're living through a historic transformation. The era of dollar supremacy is ending, but the yuan won't replace it overnight. The future is likely multipolar dollar, euro, and yuan sharing the stage. For the US, this is a wake-up call. Renew competitiveness, reduce debt, and restore trust. For the world, it's a chance to build a more balanced, resilient financial system. The choices made now, in Washington, Beijing, and beyond, will shape the next era. As citizens, we must understand these forces and demand smart leadership. The end of one era is the start of another. We stand at the dawn of a new world order. The story isn't finished, and we all have a role to play.